Welcome back to the show, NWA Connie Corso's podcast. We are privileged with this lady's no stranger, and she kind of helped pop off my first shows. Worked with me and Gypsy Stratton and I, Miss Lori Berg. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I
Good,
helped you
good.
with your first show. I don't remember that.
Gypsy was my first ever podcast.
All right.
Yeah. We did several shows after that. Yeah. Did a lot of work together. And that's one thing about it too. Gypsy was always, man, you got to get my wife on, but we never was able to get to it because he started to get sick around about that time.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. But anyway, how have you been doing?
I've been okay. It's been a hard road since Gypsy passed. That's definitely the truth.
Hmm.
But, I'm every day I thank God and I keep moving on best that I can.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. It was definitely a turn of events, and he was still. I would still call him out. After he slowed down a little bit, probably was only able to talk to him at 5 minutes at a time and things, and then he got a little weak and everything. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, I just want to tell you I appreciate y'all. Because I mean, without y'all, I wouldn't even had y'all was my very first podcast, very first
Oh,
one.
thank you, Joe. And you've been great through this time checking in on me. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Um, so let's. I want to talk about you for a second.
Mm, me.
When
Okay.
did you? Yeah. When did you discover this was a question your husband asked a lot. When did you discover your first love for dogs or animals?
Oh. Well, I have to say, I've been blessed with dogs all my life. I've been trying to think. I don't think there's ever been a time that I haven't had a dog or two or five or 10 or
Right.
20.
Yeah.
But I've been blessed with dogs all my life. I've seen pictures of me as a baby in a crib with the dog sitting next to me.
Hmm.
And I remember, growing up hearing lots of stories. We raised Dalmatians when I was young, always had puppies. And M- my dad had the puppies in the closet in an old refrigerator box that cut up. That was the whelping box back then,
Yeah.
and that stayed in the closet. And that's where she had the puppies. And they'd say, "Where's Lori?" And that's where they'd find me laying in the whelping box. So
Mhm.
dogs have always been close to my heart. The one I really remember is when I was like 8 years old or 10 years old, and my brother came home and told my dad, "Dad, I gotta bring Nikki over for the weekend because I'm going out of town. I have no one to watch him." Nikki was this big black Doberman, mean as sin. He was a guard dog at my brother's welding shop on the west side of Chicago back in the late 60s, early 70s,
Hmm.
when it was pretty tough back then on Madison Street. And he said, "I'm going to bring Nicky home. I'm going to put him out in the garage. I'll give him food and water." He goes, "You don't have to bother him. Don't let Lori out there because this is a guard dog. He's mean. He bites. Don't let her go out there by the dog."
Hmm.
Well, my brother came home 2 days later and he's like, "Dad, where's Nicky? He's not in the garage." And my dad goes, "Oh, he's on the back porch." Well, my brother comes there and there's me and Nicky sitting there playing Barbie dolls. My brother was so mad. He's like, my whole life I heard from him, "You ruined my dog. You ruined my dog." I think that's where it started. And then I
Right.
just gravitated to dogs.
Yeah.
Neighbors
Yeah.
had big, mean dogs. I'd be there.
Right. So
My
you
family couldn't get me. They'd have to call the owners to call the dog in the house.
at an early age you didn't have any in fear or wasn't intimidated by these animals. Why?
No, I cannot be. No, I
Yeah.
can't understand why.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why,
Mm.
but I've always gravitated to the bigger the better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like dogs.
Right.
I didn't care who they were. They'd come in my yard, alleys were left open, gates, stray dogs would come in the yard. I'd try to teach them tricks. I,
Mhm.
I guess I was a lonely child. All my brothers and sisters were older already and
Okay.
growing up. I was one of them late babies.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the one thing. The really good trainers, I always, I always notice y'all have something in common. It's this,
Really?
yeah. It's this knack. It's this almost uh how do I put it? Sometimes they might be socially awkward with people, but like got this
Exactly.
really deep thing with dogs.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Well,
really know. Yeah.
most of us dog trainers are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We'd rather
Mm.
be with the dogs most of the time anyway.
Right. Right. So you was probably able to teach the dog things just naturally, I would suppose.
I did, I would teach them tricks. And back then, my dad worked at Rand McNally, and Rand McNally was a bookmaking company.
Hmm.
So he would bring me all the books home. Any book that had a dog on the cover or anything, I most likely had it. And I would read all the books that I could. I would, go and play with neighbors' dogs. I had a little dog hospital underneath the porch.
Hmm.
And, I would just be a happy little girl playing out there with the dogs. That's what got me.
Right.
But as
Right.
I grew up, my I don't know what I can say what took me, but I went into nursing when I was 18 years old.
Hmm.
I started working with handicapped children at Misericordia Home.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh,
And I think that's a lot having in common with dogs and with caring for people. To me, there's a lot in common there.
you think it might be a patience thing?
Yeah, you definitely got to have a lot of patience when you work with dogs. That's for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that was something I was going to ask you. What did you do before you started doing it? Because I suppose you became a full time trainer at some point. What helped? What educated you on your journey to be the
To
astounding
be a
dog
dog, well, let me say, I think after my mom died, after she passed away, I had one Doberman, Harley girl.
trainer?
And me and Harley were, we're sad. Mom's gone. It it was hard for us. So I had this bright idea of, I think it's time to get another dog. That'll make us feel better.
Mhm,
So I had my sights set on for a big Rottweiler. I wanted a big male Rottweiler. So I was on the search for him. Well, I ended up with a female Rottweiler, okay?
yeah.
I went into a place one day and this lady, I was working actually, took my patient for a walk. I had a real nice private nursing gig with a Italian family. I was taking him for a walk one day in the wheelchair and came upon this pet shop out on the north side. And I went in there, and this woman was surrendering a litter of Rottweilers that she couldn't take care of anymore.
Mhm,
Well, this one caught my eye, and I was like, looked at it, it's a girl. I'm like, no, I don't want a girl. Well, a couple days later, I went back there. I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I went and got her.
mm.
She gave me a run for my money, Joe. I thought I knew stuff. That dog had me spinning in circles.
Hmm.
Back then you house trained your dog and that was it. You didn't use crates and stuff like that.
Right.
I came home from work one day and she had chewed the whole side of my antique couch. I almost died.
Oh man.
That dog went in the basement for a couple of weeks after that when I
Yeah.
got sad and, oh, I'm sorry, Shotzi. I'm going to let you come back up in the house. I
Hmm.
come home from work the next day, she started chewing on the other side of the couch.
Yeah.
So that was when I said, okay, it's time for me to learn about crate training.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. But my vet said to me, Lori, if she's giving you that hard of a time, there's a good dog training school down I forget where it was, South Side. Go there and they'll
South.
help you out.
Yeah.
South Side of Chicago.
You from the South Side? Okay. Yeah.
And I went down there and it was at the Pet Boutique.
Hmm.
And I met the Cars. They were the owners. Father was a cop. Daughter did a lot of the training.
Hmm.
And I started training Shotzi there. We went from basic obedience. We just climbed through it. Everything. Off
Hmm.
lead, agility, you name it, we did it. And the father said to me, "You're pretty good with dogs. You ever think about training?" And I said, "Well, right now nursing pays my bills, so I'm not interested in anything else." And he asked me, "Are you have you ever considered personal protection training?" He goes, My daughter's coming with her dog. She has a big Doberman and she's going to put on a demonstration. So if you want to come and see, this is when it's going to be."
Hmm.
So I couldn't wait to go see the demonstration. I heard a lot about Bridget's dog. He was badass, super trained, don't touch him, that kind of dog. I couldn't wait to meet him. Got there, she put the demonstration on, and I swear, Joe, my heart just was fluttering the whole time like, oh my God, I got to have something like that. I
Hmm.
got to have that.
Right.
That dog, he was he was hot. He was red hot. He was so on command, and you could just see the dark in him like, "I'll really get you, person, if you come any closer to my mom." And that's what I thought. I got to have something like that.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And they said to me, "Well, why don't you try Shotzi in the personal protection class?" So they had a few trainers over there. I took her to a couple different trainers that they had, and they couldn't get anything out of her.
Hmm.
And the owner said, "Why don't you just stay with us for a while? Work the group classes with Bridget. Um, we're talking right now to a trainer we used to have. His name is Gypsy. And he's going to come back to the shop and he's going to work for us. So I'm sure, you could sign up, maybe do something with him."
Hmm.
So that's how it all began when I met Gypsy.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So when Gypsy came in, what was more his role? What did he do as far as training at that time?
He was their personal protection trainer.
Okay.
And I signed up for an evaluation along with a ton of other people that were waiting for his return to come back to the training school because several of the dogs that he trained, fully trained in protection, I got to see in and out when they would come in class. A lot of ladies back then, too. He always wanted to make sure the ladies were safe.
Right. So
And
okay. Yeah.
go on,
Well, I know he always talked about the church lady
for
and
sure.
his feelings
Going
for his
back to
mother.
his roots with his mom and grandma, he always wanted to make sure they were safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember clearly the day, it was a beautiful day outside. Later in the summer, I had a golf outing at work with the doctors. I had to run home, pick up Shotzi, and get to the park where we were meeting for the evaluations. So it was my turn, and he was checking out Shotzi, asking questions. And he told me after a few that he goes, She's really soft. She's a very soft dog." He said, "But if you want to work her, sign up for a single lesson at a time and we'll see how it goes." So I was like, "Of course I want to." In my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I'm here. Let's try this." So he was talking for a while and he asked me some typical questions. And I remember him saying to me, "Why do you want a personal protection dog?" And I said, "Well, first off, I'm a nurse." And he stopped and said, "What? You're a nurse?" He screams it real loud. I'm like, "Oh my God." He goes, "You're going to be my wife." And I'm like, looking at this dude, okay? I'm like, I don't think so, man. I'm looking at him, he's got the bandana on, dreads
Mhm,
hanging down, earrings. I'm like, typical name, Gypsy. I don't
mhm.
think so. you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he had to continue with the rest of the students. Everybody usually hung out afterwards till everybody else was finished. And I remember clearly, Joe, I was getting ready to leave, and there was another trainer that had asked me out a week or two prior to that. And I was going to give him my number that night. I went to give him my phone number, and from behind, Gypsy comes up from behind, grabbed that piece of paper right out of my hand, and says, I'm going to marry her.
Yeah, there we go.
And that was it. That dude
Yeah,
didn't get the number,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's where it all began.
Jib said, how I'm not gonna ask I'm not gonna ask how old you were, but how old was
Ah.
Gypsy when y'all first met?
Oh, I already had 15 years in a nursing career, okay?
Oh, okay. All right.
I was
Yeah.
no little girl.
Also, y'all knew what y'all was doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how it kind of worked.
So I started taking Shotzi to class.
Mhm,
She really wasn't interested in the class.
mhm,
And Gypsy said, why don't you come and work with me? He knew I was helping out Bridget. He goes, why don't you come and work with me?
mhm,
And he goes, I can pay you. You could do the obedience, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. My schedule was really cool. I worked 4, had 3 days off.
mhm,
So on those 3 days off, I'd be traveling around the city of Chicago with Gypsy, doing all the obedience, getting paid under his direction. And he would do all the personal protection. He had tons of clients in Chicago,
mhm.
store owners, individual people, so we had a lot of work that we were covering. And we stayed together doing that for a long time, about a year, I
Okay.
think, that I worked under him,
Right.
meeting all the old trainers in Chicago, learning their things. He
Like,
often talked
yeah,
about Lieutenant Earl Jones. He really loved that man.
yeah.
He learned a lot from him and from his father, James Stratton. Learned a
Mhm,
lot, but he always called Earl Jones the fancy trainer. I guess Earl Jones taught his Doberman. I won't say they were, well, I guess you can call them tricks, but a lot of scenario stuff, how to go in a house and take somebody's purse and come out of the house with the purse and all
yeah.
kind of different tricks like that,
Oh, yeah.
go down the block and get a kid and walk them back home. I mean,
Really?
all kind of stories of what Earl Jones taught his Doberman. So he got that name as the fancy trainer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's some cool stuff, though.
Right? I
You probably
know.
gave somebody some ideas.
I know.
Yeah,
We went to
yeah.
this other man's house. Robinson was his name, I think. He had a Rottweiler, and he was really cool too. We'd be down in the basement, and he would tell the Rottweiler, "Okay, take this note up to mom." And he'd take the note, go up the porch, up the stairs, and
Mhm,
bring down a can of soda or whatever was in the note. The mom would read the note, give it to the dog. He'd bring it back down. It was really good. They
mhm.
spent a lot of time training their dogs back then, and had really good dogs.
Right, right. So when you met Gypsy, I get maybe his father maybe had not been around, maybe wasn't around. Did you ever get to meet those trainers like Lieutenant Earl Jones or his
Earl
father?
Jones, I did not meet.
Okay.
Now, and somebody asked me that not long ago, and I can't remember if he already passed. I think he must have already passed when I was around. I didn't come around till the late 90s.
Late 90s. Okay. All right.
I
All
think
right.
he was already passed, but I met a lot of the other old guys
Right, right,
at their house. Gypsy took me to all of them,
right.
and there was a lot of old, good dog shows back then on the west side of
That's what I've
Chicago.
heard.
They
Yeah, yeah.
and you would meet everybody there too. Everybody who was anybody would be there. It was good.
Like it was like from what Gypsy used to tell me, and he used to say like these shows used to be so big, like they were like pretty much. I don't want to exaggerate, but these dudes. in Chicago was like considered legends at the
Oh
time.
man,
Yeah,
for real. I mean,
yeah.
I remember walking into the first show he took me out on the West Side at this motorcycle club. It was like walking into something that was underground,
Hmm.
tons of people. Like if it was a MMA fight, tons and tons of people all crowded together, hovering around the ring, waiting for the dog to come in.
Hmm.
And it was great. The show would go on. The person would be handling their dog. The trainer would be there, and they would put on some awesome personal protection shows. And they'd
Right.
have freestyle events. So the dog, they also would take the time for a freestyle where they would teach the dog some other kind of fancy thing to do in the protection.
Mm. Gotcha.
I
So
don't think, back then nobody carried around phones with cameras and video, so there's probably not a lot of that around.
I was
I
gonna
know I
say,
had a few, very few snapshots,
right, right,
but other than that, not like it is today where you can actually see all that work. That was some great work.
right,
That was
right.
really great work back then. Great, great to see, great to be involved in.
I don't, I
When
don't know, I don't know from when you got into the school, working with the people who had the school, and what was the time? How long was it before you met Gypsy? From once you started.
um I was probably there 6 or 8 months,
Okay.
enough that my dog had went through 5, 6 different classes, 7, 8 week classes at a back to back. We just kept going, whatever they were. I think that was in the winter, and I think he came back in the summer.
Right, right. A lot of people, you know, want to know things about Gypsy, uh, and different things like that. Even today, what did he think about this? What did he think about that? And I always say to myself, if anybody know, if anybody would know, it would be you.
Uh,
Uh, but he also used to talk about, to me, the way he used to brag on you. He's like, "Oh,
really?
my wife, my wife, my wife." He probably about like me when it comes to my wife. He worse than me. And he told me about a dog that you trained that they put that was worth so much they put a lot of insurance money on it. You remember that?
One of my dogs, personally, that I
Yeah,
trained.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Dog you trained that was like you. I guess you had them on on point so much that it was
Well,
worth a
I
lot of
had
money.
Ruby, the Canis Panther.
Okay.
She was incredible.
Hmm.
And, I took her around and did everything possible with her, every kind of training. She was so badass.
Mm.
She just was. I miss her so
Yeah.
much. There's never been a dog close enough to her again as
Hmm.
far as the training and the on point. But the thing back then was my biggest regret is that Gypsy never stood in front of a dog for me because we lived together.
Mm.
So he couldn't train a dog for me like he could train for everybody else.
Hmm.
He would stand and he would direct the trainer what to do for me and my dog, but he wouldn't stand in front of that dog because of the dogs that he turned out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because too, he didn't believe in the owner like he didn't believe in letting your own dog bite you.
Oh no,
No,
please.
he was a very
That's
definite.
that's a whole nother show.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is the worst thing you could ever do is let your dog bite yourself. You
Mhm.
just lose all disrespect right there.
Right, right.
Totally.
I remember him
Yes,
telling
he
me.
did not believe in that, and he would not be able to live with me if he did that. Okay, we we lived with real dogs. We had Canis Panthers, we had Rottweilers, we had German Shepherds, but my Panthers were in the house. And I've had some dynamite boys. And if Gypsy raised his voice, them boys would look at him, they'd get a little growl going on.
Mm.
And I would always think, yeah, that's my boy. And he'd be like, put that damn dog in a cage right now.
Very
Because
dangerous. Yeah.
very protective. That,
Hmm.
they're not going to let nobody talk to their mama in any kind of bad way.
Hmm.
And most of them, and I won't say most of them, some of them didn't even have training. That was
Yeah.
just natural in a panther.
And let's not forget what your nickname is.
That's
Mother
right.
of Dragons. Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So wow. 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 The Canis Panther. What how did that breed develop and what was its purpose?
Canis Panther.
Yes, ma'am. If you can give us a little
Well,
history on
okay, Canis Panther. Let's see. Well, it was bred to be a family pet protector. I remember when Scorpio and Lucas and Gypsy and I sat down at my dining room table and we discussed the Canis Panther. Scorpio told me all about the upcoming of the dogs, that the Canis Panther was a blended breed,
that.
4 dogs that they put together, a black Dane, a black Dobe, a black Lab, and either American Staff or Pit, depending what yard they came out of. I think Scorpio had more Pit lines in his, where Lucas Lopez had more staff lines in his.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and that originated back then. Scorpio had no dates. Scorpio gave me all the original documentation that he had handwritten, gave to me, not to nobody else in the country, but he gave it to me. But they don't have dates on them. So it was somewhere back in the late 70s into the 80s, maybe, that the breed actually started, being one dog, being the Canis Panther.
Hmm.
But since then, it has established bloodlines,
Yeah.
a lot of multi generation pedigree.
Hmm.
And again, it was created to be the ultimate pet protector, the dog that can be put in the backyard and watch the kids. That's
Right.
what it was for. It's
You
very
could.
intelligent,
Hmm.
loyal, love you to death.
Hmm.
But they are extremely protective of their family and their home.
Yeah. I was sitting there looking at the breeds used, and as you described it, you could like, yep, that's why I use that. That's why I use that. You can see everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Uh-huh.
And and I love the Canis Panther for their intelligence. It's one of the smartest dogs I've ever had my hands on. In all
Hmm.
these 27 years, I've had my hands on thousands of dogs as a dog trainer.
Hmm.
And is super intelligent. And I love that about them. They're intelligent, um, excel in obedience, agility, personal protection, home protection, exactly what they were made for.
Right. Right.
They're
Um.
very
Hmm.
sensitive animal,
Hmm.
sensitive to their family. They don't like they don't. No, I won't say confrontation. They don't like to be told, scolded. Say they do something bad, they're not going to do it again. The
Right.
sensitivity in them. They
Right.
just want
Right.
to please whoever their owner is. And they do good homes, do good in homes with mostly anybody, other pets, kids, properly introduced and supervised, like a good dog owner should do. You have a great dog on your hands.
Right. Right. Um, and you're still breeding this dog till today, right?
I am.
Yeah. Is that
I
the lady?
am.
Is that
I
the lady
am.
you just had? Can't nobody get it. You was already gone.
It's gone, Joe. I have a waiting list. I kind of took some time off last year, and I do have a waiting list. And these puppies are going to wonderful places.
Good.
I'm very excited for them, and I'm actually going to keep a female myself.
Hmm.
So I'm excited for that.
Hmm.
And it's true, you said earlier, I am the mother of dragons. And you know
Right.
why? Because
Why is
I
that?
have trained, I have handled, and I have raised more Canis Panthers than anyone on this earth. And that's a fact. Nobody can disagree with that fact when I say it. I
Right.
have trained, handled, and raised more Panthers than anybody on this
Right.
earth.
Gotcha. Is the breed? I'm sorry, I don't know much about it, but
Hmm.
for its popularity, how is the popularity growing? Do you want it to grow fast, or do you want it to kind of just? Yeah, I don't want it pumped out like that. What is your thoughts on the breed today?
It's always been that way. We didn't want it to be, something that people are going to pump out all the time,
Hmm.
which, since, let me go back to say, since the day Scorpio called and said to Gypsy, "You better come over right now and pick up your puppy," and in his Scorpio voice. And
Yeah.
Gypsy gets off the phone. He's like, "Let's go. We got to go get the puppy."
Yeah.
Day we brought Ruby home. Scorp told me, "You're the first white person that I'm giving this dog to.
Hmm.
Yes, I want you to take it out and show the world how great they are." He goes, "But I'm afraid what's going to happen when the white man puts their hands on it, because they're going to say it's their dog and they want to change it." And there has been so much controversy over that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
People thinking that they can do better or change the dog. You know, I've always said to them people, or I have no use for anyone who thinks they can do better than Scorpio did. I'm making the dog.
Hmm.
They try to change the dog by putting something else in it and still call it a panther. Like you'll see out there, Canis Panther mixed with Corso,
Hmm.
the new Canis Panther. It's not a
Hmm.
Canis Panther anymore if you mix it with something else.
No. Right.
And
You're right.
the Canis Panther never had stripes,
They
and
got
the
stripes
Canis
now.
Panther don't have 4 white feet.
Mm.
Now you'll see when you know, put the
Right.
pictures up. You'll see what they look like, what they should look like. They
Right.
don't have stripes. They don't have socks on their feet. They don't
Mm.
have crazy heads.
Right.
Mixed with anything else, they're not a Canis Panther anymore. I
Right.
don't know why
Okay.
people can't understand that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, wow. It sounds like what when breeds get popular, boy, or start to get
They
popular.
do. They
Yeah.
start to get popular, and then people just want to do stuff. But
Hmm.
and then with the sport too, sport
Hmm.
training, they were never intended to be sport dogs.
Right.
They have a great physical look, good genetic makeup. They got a keen nose, but their purpose is a pet protector, not a sport dog. They're more defensive minded than prey driven.
Why?
So
Why was it so much of emphasis on defensive dogs? Uh, with the gentleman of Chicago, because that was their philosophy, right? There was like
yeah,
defense.
well,
Yeah, yeah,
probably living in the city of Chicago, you
right.
had to have a defensive dog. Couldn't
Hmm.
have no damn dog that was going to take off running after somebody, and then the guy behind you is going to hit you over the head. Where's your dog?
Yeah, right.
They wanted their dogs close. They wanted them in that personal protection space, the
Yeah,
length of the short lead behind you. They wanted that. They wanted that
right,
close up. Don't come in
right.
my house. Don't mess
Yeah,
with my family.
right. Even when they trained on the lead, don't pull me into the bite. Women, women, women
That's
could
right.
deal with these type dogs, right?
Yeah.
They ain't gonna
Yeah.
drag them off. Yeah,
But you
yeah.
see, I've seen so many trainers since I was involved with Gypsy. So many different trainers,
Mm-hmm.
old, new, and I've never seen a trainer train the handler the way Gypsy did. Gypsy would train the handler the same time he was training the dog. And these trainers, they just do what they want. They don't tell the handler nothing. The handler don't know how to stand, don't know how to hold the lead, don't know how to move with the dog.
Mm-hmm.
They don't tell them anything. So they're not
Right.
on that hand, they're not getting all the benefit they can from the dog because they're not instructing the handler what to do. And that was always a peeve of Gypsies. You got to be on the same page. Takes all three of you, the dog, the handler, and the trainer, to train the dog. Y'all have to be together on that.
Yes, man. Yeah, yeah. So I know me and my wife, I couldn't do this without her. Um, I don't allow her to go to work because we got enough stuff to do. She's more valuable to me at home, if that makes sense. So what I'm saying.
For sure.
Um, when you and Gypsy, you're y'all, I guess y'all full fledged training together, husband and wife, doing everything together. What was each other's role in the business side of training dogs? I'm nosy. I'm
Hmm.
sorry.
Well, we were together about a year when we decided, or I decided, that I was going to start looking for. I had sold my house. I was living in one place, and he was living in the city. So we were constantly going back and forth. Um, he'd have four dogs at his house. I had four dogs at my house. We'd get together. We had a truck full of dogs.
Mhm.
So I decided I wanted to move farther out of the city, but still close enough. I was still doing my nursing job.
Okay. Yeah.
So we came out here to Kankakee, start looking around. I had a couple places lined up that we went and seen, and got lost on this country road and turned around and pulled into this driveway and noticed there was a for sale sign. We both sat there and looked at each other like, oh my God, it's for sale. We got to have this place. It was
Mhm.
just perfect. It had yards, three different yards fenced. It had two barns. It had a big old house. It had big old land. I'm like, oh my God, this would just be perfect for what we want. Well, it ended up, took a while, but we got the place. We got here, named it Rock of Ages Kennel because the Lord brought us here and we're going to do our job.
That's right. Yeah.
And he did most of the training. I was still working in Chicago
Hmm.
for about 2 years. I did that commute until I just got tired of it.
Hmm.
And I saw in the newspaper that animal control, the county animal control here, had a opening, and I filled out an application, and they hired me for animal control officer.
Okay. Yeah.
And I quit my nursing job. People like, are you sure? I tried to quit for like a year. Every time I try to quit, the doctor would give me more money, you know?
Yeah, that's what they do.
Don't
Yeah.
go, don't go here. What do you need? A raise? You just need a raise.
Yeah.
And so I finally said, no, that's it. I can't take the commute no more. The winters were terrible. You'd spend 3-4 hours driving 65 miles, you know? So I took the animal control job. So I had 40 hours at animal control. I told them, since I didn't know anything on animal control, I wanted to be sent to school and become certified.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent me to Illinois State Police School, I believe it was. And I got an animal control certification.
Mm-hmm.
So my big thing at that point was the more certifications I could build, the better, because what I noticed and going around with all them different trainers is they were all trainers, learned from each other, but nobody ever went per se to a school. Nobody ever had any type of certifications to show what they knew. So as I'm trying to build my resume, Gypsy's still here at Rock of Ages Kennel. He's building his with all getting in new clients and old clients that would come in from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So I seen another job opening at a local Petco. They wanted a dog trainer. So I went there. It was for evenings. I signed up. I applied. They hired me. And when they hired me, I told them, I had a couple years now of shadowing people, doing this, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them if they did any certifications. And they said they had a school that they were involved in. Oh, God, what's the name of that school? I can't remember right now. Animal Behavior College.
Okay.
So we made a contract for them, and they paid me to become a certified dog trainer and behavioralist from Animal Behavior College
Mm.
back in, I think that was in 99.
Okay.
So I got certified as a trainer, and behavioralist back then. I had to do a lot of testing. I had to do a lot of hands-on. I had to do a lot of video shots to show these people I knew my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I became certified.
Right.
So I just kept building my resume, working at home, working at animal control. I started working at like every park in Kankakee County. I was out 4 or 5 nights a week doing group classes, Kankakee Park, Bourbonnais Park, Bradley. As far as another one down south, the more training I was doing, any free time was training at home. Weekends, Gypsy and I were on the road doing training dogs, getting trained our own dogs. He had Chief Canis Panther at that time, his dog. And I
Mm-hmm.
had Ruby, and they went everywhere with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept building my resume, and every time I can, I still am a consultant for TASA. It's a technical it's a technical service for attorneys. I'm a certified expert canine witness.
Oh, wow.
So I get called every once in a while and do cases. Sometimes they take me out of town. Those were always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Dog bite cases or
Right.
management cases. I've done all of them.
Oh,
We even
wow.
had, at one time, we had an 800 number. I think it was 1 800 Canine Aid for You. It was an 800 number where people would call in and ask advice. We ran that for a little while. That was cool.
Mm. Wow.
Um, I did
Okay.
a lot of stuff. What else did I do? Animal control, temperament test. I developed temperament tests for shelter dogs because I
Yeah.
became, after I left animal control officer, Gypsy hated me having to go out at night when I was on call.
Mm-hmm.
It was back then when we first moved in here, there was a lot of pit fighting going on.
Yeah.
And I'd get called out in the middle of the night to go to these places, and pick up the dogs. And it was scary.
Yeah.
And one night, it was about 2 in the morning, and they called me. I was on call. They called me, meet me, meet the sheriff down here. They just broke up a fight. There's a dog you got to take back in. I go down there. They put the dog in the truck, and I go down. I drive back to the animal control. It's like 2 in the morning. I'm the only one out.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
go out there. I park the truck. I get the dog. We go in. I lock the door. I'm putting the dog in the kennel, and the phone is ringing, and I'm like, the only person that could be ringing the phone, we didn't have cell phone then. I go, it's probably Gypsy. He's probably like, where are you? Are you okay? Freaking out. So I answer the phone. I'm like, hello? And the other person on the other end goes, I know you got my mother effing dog, bitch. I'm going to come there and get you. I'm like, oh
Dang.
my God. I hung up the phone. I lock the building. I get in the truck. I run home, drive home as fast as I can. Tell Gypsy, he's like, that's it. You can't do this job no more. You're not going to get yourself killed over this job.
Right.
So I told
Yeah.
them I didn't want to do it no more. They moved me in. I became the adoption coordinator and started adopting all these stray dogs out. They never seen a rape because they didn't know how. They didn't know what to do with the dogs.
Right. Right.
So I
Yeah.
invented a temperament testing for them, and we did good. We had a lot of dogs out adopted. Still in
Wow.
between there, I'm working Rock of Ages kennel.
Yeah.
Gypsy's doing his thing.
Mm-hmm. Boy, y'all was hustling it up for real when you Miss
Oh
Lori.
man, we were. And I was even showing I remember I was even showing Johnson American Bulldogs back then. Because I had the privilege to meet John D. Johnson. You know him, don't you?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
You've
Yeah,
heard of
sure have.
John D. I had the
Uh-huh.
privilege of meeting him, and I got to spend 2 days with him sitting in his house, literally talking to him. I have pictures of us looking at my pedigrees. And, he told me lots of breeding secrets. I always say he was like a mentor. He told me how to choose dogs, what to look for in dogs, what to keep, what not to breed. I mean, it was great knowing him.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good to know him.
Right, right.
Oh,
Yeah. Who else in dogs have you met? People would never thought that you might have or someone who might have been very interesting or made a mark on you.
no, I don't know. I met so many people.
Got you. Got you.
Couple, I can't. There was a pit bull guy who did. He had. I can't remember his name. He was real famous for pit bulls. We ended up meeting him, and he lived down here in Kankakee. We couldn't even believe that. I'm
Really?
sorry to say I can't remember his name,
Uh-huh. I wonder who that was. Okay. You
but we
worked
met
on
a
dog.
lot of people.
Right. Right. You worked on dog bite cases, and something else Gypsy was adamant about was the law when it come to dogs. You know what I mean?
Right, dog bite law.
Yeah, dog bite law, and his one of
Uh-huh. The
his
best bite
famous
is no
saying
bite.
was, "That's right. The best bite is no bite." That's one of his. He so I remember he got on to me one time. He got on to me good too. Uh, he'll do that every now and then.
For
Uh,
sure.
yeah,
He didn't
I had
hold back tearing somebody up.
sometimes I get a little fancy. And he saw this litter I was promoting, and I had all this fire and shit and all this old crazy stuff, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. He said, "Don't you know these dogs are going to families, and why are you promoting them in that way? You know what I mean, like that." And And I was like, yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying? Why am I promoting that way? But here's a man that dealt with
Right.
very dangerous dog telling me, don't promote
Exactly.
that dog. Why are you doing it? You know, but it made sense. They still go to because he truly was about family. And even if that dog did get a bite, if he stopped a situation from happening, that was a win to him.
For sure. And not to say he never trained dogs to bite. Back in the day, he did.
Yeah.
You know, he did. But then he had, let's say he had that epiphany. It's like the best bite truly is no bite.
Mhm,
Dog biting is destructive. Why
mhm,
are we teaching dogs to bite harder and longer and deeper and stronger to
mhm,
that piece of equipment?
mhm,
And then that dog gets loose and bites a person.
mhm,
That flesh that they're biting is not like that material that they're teaching the dog to bite on. They're going to destroy that piece of flesh. And that's what
mhm,
he realized. We got to calm down. We got to calm this world down. The
mhm.
best bite is no bite. And
Right.
he started going more defensive, more, um, teaching the dogs to defend and teaching them tactics where they didn't have to use their mouth. And that's again where he came in with his muzzle training. He was a fabulous muzzle trainer.
Mhm,
He could do anything with a dog and a muzzle, teach them anything. And like
mhm,
he always said, if that muzzle comes off, do you think that dog don't know how to bite? People wouldn't understand. Why you say the best not bite is no bite? Dogs know how to bite. They
mhm,
have a mouth full of teeth. If you
mhm,
didn't look in there, open up your dog's mouth. All
mhm.
them teeth are going to get you.
Yeah, it is.
They know how to bite. They'll
Right.
bite for no reason at all if you let them.
Right.
So why do we just keep teaching them?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
they just have to realize, there's
Mhm,
already rules and regulations on teaching dogs to fight other animals or to fight on humans.
mhm.
And, they got to be careful because I know it was just a few years ago, they were really heavily looking into the law and they were trying to adopt laws that they could put into the sport dog type of training where they should prohibit most dogs to being taught to bite on training fields for that reason that they
Mhm.
get out and they can seriously destroy a human.
Right.
And
Right.
as Gypsy would always say, we're not the police, we're not the
Yeah.
military. We
Right.
don't have those rights that they have.
And another thing is when you mention Gypsy, a lot of people I know he would tell me, he said, man, I've been warned with people for years about his philosophy. And, I wouldn't say he's against sport, but he was against sport style training dressed up under the flag of personal protection training. Am I right?
Yes,
Okay.
for sure. Because,
Yeah.
you know, back in the day when I started coming around, they were doing the sport training, calling it personal protection.
Hmm.
And personal protection, as we know it, is, that short space around us in our home. That's personal protection, not teaching the dogs to run a mile down to get the man. So that
Hmm.
was the main difference. And we even went, a bunch of us went to this Schutzen seminar that was labeled as personal protection.
Hmm.
And they didn't like our dogs. They
Hmm.
certainly didn't like his dog, Chief. Chief was a big mother. He was about
Hmm.
145 pounds. Solid, big, strikingly handsome Canis Panther.
Right.
Trained, crazy trained.
Yeah.
Every train, Gypsy had him trained so good.
Yeah.
And when it was Gypsy's turn up there to go with that guy, and he turned Chief on, that man came in. He was going to walk into him with the sleeve, and Gypsy just says, "Get him, dog." And he let his arm go. And that dog stood up on his hind feet and had his hands up in the air looking at that man face to face. Spitting fire at him. That man told Gypsy, "I'm not going to work that dog. That's no kind of dog." He wouldn't work him. He was so mad, probably so embarrassed from that episode, that he didn't want to work. That he didn't want to work Gypsy's dog. He told him he was a dirty dog, dirty biter.
Right.
And it was some kind of show to be at. Yeah.
Right.
It was something else.
Yeah. So I have another question. Down through the years, you two formed the PPDA. Could you tell the audience what the PPDA is and what it was developed for?
Probably just for that reason, the Personal Protection Dog Association, PPDA, that Gypsy founded again back in probably 98 or so. And at that time, it was, he always wanted to be involved, always wanted the other ones involved, other trainers. He wanted them involved with things and always reached out to people. So when he formed the PPDA, it was actually for recognition of all the trainers in Chicago that were doing personal protection. And they all we had big meetings, and all those trainers like Bridget Carr and Mel McDuffie and Dave Robinson and, oh my God, I know I'm forgetting a whole bunch of names, but all them different trainers were all at the meeting, and they all agreed to being part of the PPDA and certified each other as professional trainers. They all took their hand to the signature and signed each other's certificates that, yes, we know you're a professional. We know what you do. We know what you've done. Let's legitimate ourselves in this group. And that's what they did. And then we started having PPD events. I was the secretary, of course, of the PPDA. I had a column in the newsletter. We put out newsletters. We did shows. We had a great show system on points where we would do like 4 or 5 different personal protection shows. Each trainer would host a show. And if your dog was in that show, he would get a ranking in the PPDA for every show he participated in throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we'd have the grand finale here at Rock of Ages Kennel, the grand finale PPDA show to crown a champion for that year. Sounds complicated, but it wasn't. It was a lot of fun. It was great. It was great. We did that for. It was fun. We had shows. One of the best shows I remember that we had. Some people, they would be training on that damn electric, and we were never electric trainers here, never felt a need, never learned electric training, never felt a need to do it.
What we did, electric training, you mean
electric collars and things like that.
Okay.
A lot of people use that for the dogs that they were training. So we had this show, champion show, and when it came time for the personal protection part of the show, when the dog and the handler walked on the field, Gypsy said, "Okay, now for this part, this section of the show, remove all your collars and your dog's leash and throw it to the side. Some of the
Uh-oh.
people are like, what? Like, uh-oh. So the
Yeah.
dog literally had to perform with no collar on because that was the only way we could trust they weren't hitting that little button in their pocket to make their dog do the job. And it
Right.
showed a lot, you know,
Yeah.
it showed a lot. That was a great show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what also you do you still certify people through the
I
PPDA?
do. I'm still certifying.
Okay.
He has the titles. When he first started, he wrote 6 personal protection titles. And for a few years, you know, a lot of people were striving to get all. There was 3 obedience titles and 3 protection titles from your
Hmm.
basic to off lead.
Hmm.
And
Right.
we did a lot of those. What do you not we'll say events? They were a lot of events that we went around and other trainers hosted, and you know, people got titles.
Right.
So then everybody was changing 5, 6, 7 years later. Everybody started going different directions. Um, I won't say what I wanted to say, but let me go back to where I was. So,
Okay.
yes, now I am still certifying titles, but most people are going for the obedience 1 and 2, which is your
Yeah.
basic obedience, and then your off lead obedience, which is great. That's
Yeah.
what you basically need
That's what most
is
people gonna
basic
want, you know.
obedience.
Right, right, right.
And
Yeah.
with the protection, um, I'm still giving one, offering the 1 title, and maybe we'll go into 2. There's only a couple trainers right now that I have installed that are still allowed to do the protection titles. Jeremiah in Texas,
Jeremiah X. Yeah.
Jeremiah X in Texas,
Hmm.
Hecka in Chicago,
Brandon Edmonds. Yeah.
Brandon, correct.
Mhm.
Um, very gracious, good students of Gypsy who want to continue to carry on what they learned from him because they can see the difference.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So
And go on.
uh I said something earlier about, when people have questions, especially when it concerned Gypsy or his philosophies and everything. I always thought you would be the best knower. So, with that being said, I know y'all used to do a lot of consultations. Do you still do the over the phone consultations if people want to reach out to you?
I do. You know, I slowed down on my physical training
Hmm.
because over my career, you know, dog training career beats up your body. 27 years. It
Right.
has, you know, beat my knees to hell and back.
Hmm.
But one thing I didn't mention before is my biggest passion that came about is and started with Shotzi, the Rottweiler, who didn't like personal protection. She eventually became a therapy dog, certified therapy dog.
You do that. Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah.
that is one of my biggest passions.
Yeah.
To this day, I am a certified therapy dog trainer. I train for the hospital, and I'm contracted with a couple of hospice companies that I put together teams, dog training teams for them. And I
Mhm.
still do that.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm still writing. You know, I've co-owned, co-authored an owner's guide to raising your pet protector. Gypsy and I
Yeah.
co co-authored that book. I
Right.
also produced 2 coloring books. I produced a Canis Panther coloring book
Right.
using all my own dogs, and I
Mm.
produced a coloring book for children called Two Poodles and a Rottweiler. And that's a therapy dog coloring book that I used my own therapy dogs in.
Oh, okay, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
those are things that are still close to me, and we've got a lot of good projects ahead. We
Yeah,
didn't
matter of
even
fact,
touch on that
yeah,
I
just talk.
breed
Yes,
AKC
yeah.
European miniature pinchers.
You do? Yeah, yeah. We didn't get on. Yeah, we didn't even get on that. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. We got time for more shows, Joe.
yeah. We do. I
And
mean, we can talk. We got a lot we can talk about. I hope you come back for another one.
for sure, and I plan good things ahead.
Mhm.
I got some good organic, holistic canine nutrition, women empowerment. Might even be a podcast in my future.
Yes.
So things are happening.
Mhm,
PPDA, you want to get a certification in
mhm.
obedience, in your basic obedience, which to me, there's nothing better than collecting certificates. The more
Yeah,
certificates you can collect for your own self or for your dog, the better it is for everybody around you. And obedience to me, I don't care what kind of dog it is. You need basic obedience. You want to
yeah.
live with that dog for the rest of your days. You need
Mhm.
some basic obedience. You can't just let the dog do what it wants to do anymore. They're different than they were a long time ago, or
Right.
different than how grandma and grandpa used to handle them.
Mhm.
You know, they're
Right.
not, dogs are different. They go places, they go to the store, they go on vacation. They're all over the place. They got to
Right.
have some obedience.
Right.
And so getting that certificate, you want a certificate? Hit me up, email me. RockofagesKennel at AOL.com. Been the same email since 1997.
Right. And I'll make sure I link it. And any links you want to send me to those books or anything, we'll get your phone number put up under the description. Because this, guys, this is not only playing on YouTube, but it's playing on Apple, it's playing on Amazon, it's playing on iHeartRadio,
All
Spotify.
right.
You're here
That's
just all over
awesome.
the country. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's
Well,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, we don't come a long way, Miss Lori. We
I
done
know,
come.
but I want to say one more thing about the Canis Panther. I want
It's a,
people to remember that it was me that took the Canis Panther to the World Wide Web. It was my dogs that the world fell in love with. It was Ruby and Chief and their litters that the world seen. That no one else, Scorpio or Luke, they didn't have any dogs that were fully trained and showing the way Gypsy and I did for Chief and Ruby.
Mhm.
It was my breedings, my puppies, again, that the world fell in love with. I have Canis Panthers placed all over the world, all
Mhm.
over. I have them in the army. I have them in SWAT. I got them in King's Castles. I have them all over the world, my dogs. And I want to continue with the authenticity of the breed the way it was intended to be.
Right.
Gypsy, before Gypsy passed away, he put soldiers in place for
Mhm.
me. He put soldiers out there. So I co own dogs from one end of the country to another. And we're going to continue as a family, like a mafiosa, so to speak.
There you go.
We got
Lafayette.
some great dogs coming out in the future.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry that I have to say I have no use for anybody who thinks they could do better. Make your own dog. Don't
Mhm.
take what Scorpio did and don't take what Scorpio made and try to change it into something else. If you do, then call it something else. That's all I
Right.
ask.
Mhm.
I don't know how hard that is to understand, but people, Canis Panthers don't have stripes and they don't have white feet. So please do your research.
Mhm.
Get yourself an authentic dog.
Yeah, yeah. Do y'all have a standard for that dog yet?
Oh yeah, they
Okay.
had they started the standard that day that Lucas and Scorpio were here. That's
Okay.
what they talked about. You
Right.
know, the dog itself is heavily muscled, like the book says, wide
Mhm.
chest and jaw, short coat, comes in chocolate, black, buckskin, and your occasional blue. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes you get a blended look like a faded out Doberman color,
Right.
pulls it back from the lines. That's acceptable.
Yeah.
The tail's docked, the ears are cropped for the standard look.
Hmm.
I sometimes do not crop all my dog's ears. Sometimes it's because I feel bad.
Hmm.
Sometimes because the vet don't want to do them anymore. So,
Hmm.
but it is the standard look for the crop. It's that
Right.
more intimidating look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Males are 29 inches up to 140 pounds. Females, little shorter, 27 and a half, 28 inches, and can get up to 115 pounds, most of them.
Big dog. Yeah.
Still looking very sleek, agile, very quick.
Hmm. Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, Miss Lori, I'm gonna let you go. Hey, look, I really do appreciate you. Ooh,
Oh, thank
you.
you.
Oh man, you don't know. You just don't know how much uh, people is still commenting on those videos back when we first started
Really.
up to the day. Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So,
well, I
and,
appreciate you so much, Joe. I really
uh,
do.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Gypsy
uh,
talked highly of you all the time.
I appreciate
Gotta
it. I
call
appreciate.
Joe. Gotta see
Yeah,
what Joe's doing.
yeah,
Joe
yeah, yeah,
called.
yeah,
Gotta call him back.
yeah. He taught me a lot. He taught me a lot. I ain't gonna lie. In that short period we knew each other, he taught me a lot. You know what I mean?
That's
A very
great.
much. And I hope you come back. You
I
don't know
sure
what.
will.
Oh, you need to because it's so much.
I was just getting started.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Oh, I can't think of anything else.
Okay, okay, sounds
Just,
good.
be good, be true, train your dog, and call me if you need anything.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Lori Berg.
Thank you.